Hey everyone. So today I'm going to share two powerful strategies to deal with regret from your past, but also ensure that you're never filled with regret again in the future. So before I get started, I just want to share three of my biggest regrets, and these decisions still haunt me a bit today. The first one was stealing a car when I was 16 and getting caught. The second one is not standing up to bullies when I was younger. And the third one is sometimes being a bit of a bully myself. And so the two strategies I'm going to share with how to deal with those things. So the first one is that regret is actually a really powerful tool to help you identify the things that you value. So instead of seeing regret as a bad thing, you can see regret, like if you regret something, it just shows that it's because there's something there that you really value. It shows what you value. So for example, in my three examples, stealing a car and getting caught, the reason that I regret this so much is because I genuinely value trust. I value honesty. And by not living those values out, I felt out of integrity. There was cognitive dissonance. And the same with not standing up to bullies or being a bully myself is because I genuinely value kindness. I genuinely value people feeling seen, people feeling heard. And so if you can reframe your regrets as ways to flush out and identify what you value, well then hopefully you'll be a bit less consumed by them. The second strategy is to realize that you are always the one who chooses the meaning that you attach to your experiences. So whatever event or whatever thing you did that you regret, you're the one who chooses the story or the meaning that you attach to it, right? And so you get to decide, is this something that maybe was good for me, or is it something that maybe allowed me to grow or made me realize something? And it doesn't matter what it is, but the powerful thing is that you're the one who decides, right? So when I look back at seeing a car and I say I'm consumed with regret, mainly because of how I disappointed my parents and how it hurt them. But actually, when I look back, I think that it's actually quite a good thing that happened to me, because I chose to see that, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have experienced the feeling of not being invincible. I probably would have been up to more bad things as a kid. I would have probably gone into way more trouble. And so I choose to see that event as something that was like a growth experience for me, or something that actually helped me. The same with being a bully. I get to choose how I see that. So I choose the experiences of me not standing up for bullies or being a bully for myself. I choose to see those things. The meaning I attach to those stories are, this is what allowed me to realize what I valued and to realize that this wasn't a good thing and it didn't feel good to do that. And so there was a learning experience in this, right? So hopefully just with those two strategies alone, you can feel a lot less guilty and a lot less consumed by some of the regret in your past. Now, when it comes to not being consumed with regret in the future, here are a few things to consider. So first of all, is that it's actually impossible not to have regrets, because if you think about it, we are limited human beings in a world of limitless possibilities. Like at any given moment, you could be doing something completely different than what you're doing right now. For example, you're watching this video, but you could be doing something else. And so at any given moment, we could be doing something else. So that means it's basically impossible not to have regrets. And that's also what makes our choices more meaningful, because when we choose to do something, it actually gives it more meaning, because if we could just do everything, it wouldn't have as much meaning. And so the key to not being consumed by your regrets is actually to choose your regrets. How to choose your regrets? Well, when looking at choosing my regrets, I like to think of these three things. So the first one is this question, which is, what would I regret the most not doing? And so, for example, if you're struggling between two options, so maybe one option is starting your business, where the other option is staying in your corporate role and going for that promotion. Well, ask yourself, okay, when I'm maybe 90 years old, I'm looking back on my life, which one of these would I have regretted the most not taking? And so this can sometimes make the answer so much easier, because instead of focusing on the pros and cons of everything, just focusing on regret, like, really sit with each of them and ask yourself, okay, which one of these would I really regret the most not taking? The second thing to consider is that in general, we will always have a tendency to regret more the things that we didn't do than the things that we did do. And so there's this really cool quote by Trevor Noah who says, "I don't regret anything I've ever done in life, any choices that I've made, but I'm consumed with regret for the things I didn't do, the choices I didn't make, the things I didn't say." We spend so much time being afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, but regret is the thing we should fear the most. And so I think this is just a powerful quote to remind us of, or something to filter through whenever you're making decisions. I can't think of anything worse than, arriving in or at the end of your life and being filled with regrets. And so along those lines, or along that train of thinking, the third thing to consider, or this is another thing that I like to always have in the top of my mind when I'm making decisions, when I'm deciding what to do next, is to consider the 5 biggest regrets of the dying. So a study was made like a while back where a nurse spent a lot of time with people on their deathbed, and she identified the top 5 regrets of the dying. And so the first regret was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself. The second one is, I wish I hadn't worked as hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish that I had stayed in contact with my friends. And I think the last one was, I wish I'd allowed myself to be happy. That's the one. And so I always try to think of these biggest regrets. These are the biggest regrets of the dying. And so by using them as a framework for making my decisions, well, I can ensure that I can pick my regrets a lot more easily. And then maybe just to close things off, a final thought is that, what if you genuinely can't pick your regrets? So let's say you've have these 2 options, the things that you want to do, but you genuinely you cannot choose which one. You would regret them equally as much if you didn't do them. Well, in that case, the way I approach it is just to realize that then it doesn't really matter which decision you make. What really matters in that instance is, will you be there for yourself when you have that regret in the future? Are you going to be kind to yourself? Are you going to, handle it essentially, or be there in a way that you support yourself and that you're not beating yourself up in the future? Because that's essentially the key, because sometimes we won't know which decision to take, but the thing that's keeping us stuck is the fear that we wouldn't be able to handle that regret down the line, and you end up then never taking a decision, which ends up being worse than if you'd taken any of the decisions to start with. And then looping back to one of the first things I said, is that you always get to choose the meaning that you attach to anything that ever happens to you. So you're the one who decides if it's a regret. That will always be your choice. And so I find that super comforting, because I know that whatever decision I make, whatever happens, I'll be able to look back on it and choose the meaning that I attach to it. And that's why I often ask my questions to myself, like, how is this a gift? How is this perfect? What is, if this was a gift from the universe, what would it be there to teach me? Like, these are questions I often ask myself about anything that happens, because it helps give me meanings to every experience that I'm experiencing, and therefore really limits the amount of regret that I have. Okay, so quickly to sum things up, the 2 strategies for letting go of regret from your past were using them as a tool to identify what you value the most, 2, you choosing the meaning that you attach to them, and how to deal with regret from the future is, one, accept that it's impossible not to have regrets. And so the strategy shouldn't be about not having regrets, but instead it should be about choosing your regrets. And the way you do this is by filtering it out through the biggest regrets of the dying, and also considering that we tend to regret more the things we didn't do than the things we did do. And then again, the main point is that in this video is that you always get to decide the meaning that you attach to anything that you ever experience, anything that ever happens to you. And in that meaning, or in that choice, lies your power and your freedom. So I really hope you found this video useful. If you want to dive deeper into some of this, you can start by taking the self-confidence test that I'll link below, and any other free resources that I have. But other than that, I wish you an amazing day, and as always, much love.